Alright guys, so after map today, what you're going to be working on is an introduction to our first unit, which is integers. The target for what we're going to do is I can determine if a number is positive or negative based on the words used to describe it. Also, I can identify positive and negative integers based on any real-world situation. So you're going to watch this video and fill in the guided notes that I gave you. And what we're going to do is we're going to discuss, number one, what the word integer means, what it is. We're going to talk about words that indicate positive and words that indicate negative. And then we're going to be looking at some real world situations where we have to determine whether it's positive or negative and then what that integer would be. So the first thing that we need to discuss is, what is an integer? Integers are all positive and negative numbers, including 0. So go ahead and fill that in on your notes paper as we go. If I talk too fast, you can pause the video to fill in your notes and then press play to keep going. So when we talk about an integer, it is every single number out there, positive and negative, including 0, since 0 is neither positive nor negative. Okay, integers are everywhere. Some examples: -4, 3, 0, 1,222. Okay, any number that's positive or negative, and also 0. Okay, we use integers in our everyday life. We don't even know it. We don't even pay attention to it. Okay, so we're going to look at some real world situations, and then we're going to talk about whether it would be a positive or a negative and why. Okay, the first one is Mark deposited $90 into his bank account. Deposited means that we're putting that money into our account. So since we're putting it in, that means it's going to be a positive 90. The integer that would represent this situation is positive 90. The second one we're going to look at, the submarine descended to a depth of 800 feet below sea level. So if we're talking about a submarine starting at sea level and then it dives below, that tells us it's going to be a negative. It's below sea level and it's 800 feet below. So the integer that represents that is a negative 800 feet. The temperature rose 11 degrees. Rose tells us that it's going up, and since it's going up, we have a positive 11. And lost 18 pounds. She's shedding that weight, she's taking it off, so it's a negative. Our integer that represents that situation is negative 18. And this one's kind of cut off of the screen, but you can see it on your paper. It said, Leanne owes her mom $17. The word owes tells us she's going to have to give that up, that she doesn't have it anymore. So it's a negative $17. Okay. As we're reading through those, you can tell that there are certain words that indicate if it's going to be a positive or if it's going to be a negative. If we look at the first one again, the word deposited, that tells us we're putting it into our account. So that's the key word that tells us it's going to be a positive. In the second example, the word descended and the word below tell us that it's going to be going under, or it also represents the negative sign. Where it says the temperature rose 11 degrees, rose tells us that it's going to be going up. So that's the word that indicates it's going to be a positive. The word lost tells us we're losing it, we don't have it anymore. And so that tells us it's going to be a negative. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create two different word banks that represent positive words and negative words. Okay, so again, if I go through these too fast and you need more time to write them down, just pause the video and look at the screen and make sure you get your word banks, because those are going to come in really handy when we start working with real world integers tomorrow. Okay, so the first one we're going to talk about are positive words. Any word that tells you, that says you're getting something or something is being increased, tells us that it's going to be a positive. So fill this chart in. Some of those words are receives, makes, like if you make a certain amount of money, that's a positive. Gets, sells. If you're selling something, you're getting money in return. So that makes it a positive. We don't think about it as selling, we're giving it away. We think of selling, we're making that money. Deposits, we already talked about, means we're putting that into our account. An income or salary tells us we're making that. Profit is a word for like after you make something and sell it, it's the extra that you made on top. Profit is positive. Gain, like for example, if you gain 30 pounds, your weight is going up, so it's a positive. If you get paid, or if someone gives you a paycheck, that is a positive. Higher is going up, just like a positive. Increased or rose, like if the river rose 20 feet, it's going up, it's positive. If the temperature climbed, that's a positive. Above sea level or above 80 degrees, those mean positive. Over, again, this one is cut off. And I can't, ascend is like a plane going up, flying high. And then the last one is grew. Like if a plant grew 8 inches, its height is going up. Okay. So again, make sure you have all of those words on your chart. If you need to pause the video to get them all in, do that. The next ones that we're going to talk about are words that mean negative. So just like the words that mean positive mean go up or grew or gained, the negative words mean the opposite. That means either they're going down or taking out or you're losing. So words that indicate negatives are words like spends. If you spend money, you don't have it anymore. It's a negative, okay? The word withdrew is actually the opposite of deposit. So if I go to the bank and I tell them I want to withdraw $20 from my account, I'm taking that $20 out. So since I'm taking it out, withdraw or withdrew represents a negative, okay? If something costs money, okay, we have to pay that money out. It's not ours anymore, so it's a negative. The word debt, okay, if you have debt, that means that you owe somebody else money. So the word debt, since it indicates owing, represents a negative. Just like debt, the word owe means you don't have it, you're in debt. It's a negative. The word bought, okay, if you buy something, you have to pay money for it or you have to pay something for it. So it is a negative, okay. Deducts, okay, deducts, like if I deducted $20 from your salary, I'm taking that off, okay, or if I deducted 5 minutes off of your break, I'm taking it off. That's a negative, okay. Descends means going under. So like when we talked about the submarine, it descended below sea level. So that is a negative, it means going down. The airplane descended. Lose or lost, anytime you lose weight, or if you lose break time, or if you lose money, okay? Those are all negatives. Now, on your notes paper, I accidentally left that extra row there. If you go ahead and just draw a line through that, it's a blank, and then it says increased, and then a blank again. Draw a line through that. That was just a typo, okay? And then scooch down to the last line. And those last three are also negative. It says below, so like if we're talking about below sea level, that's a negative. Under or removed, okay? If I remove you from a class, or if you have $30 removed from your wallet, okay? Those all represent negative. All right, again, get that word bank down. If you need to pause the video to get them all in, pause the video. If not, we're moving on to the section where we read a real-world situation and you have to identify the integer that represents that situation. So as we move into that, what I want you to do is I want you, as we read the situation, to underline the word that indicates whether it's a positive or whether it's a negative, okay? So here's our first situation, and it says, at the game Friday night, Boyle County gained 18 yards on their first play. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to underline the word or words that indicate whether it's a positive or a negative integer. Okay, so if we look at this problem, we can see that the word gain or gained, okay, 18 yards on the play tells us that they're moving forward. Since they're moving forward, we can assume that it's 18, a positive 18 yards is what they've got. So the word gained on your paper should be underlined because it indicates that it's a positive integer. And then in the integer box, it's a positive 18. Okay. All right. Number 2. On January 2nd, the temperature was 12 degrees below zero. All right, so take a look at that and go ahead and underline the word that tells you whether it's going to be a positive or a negative. Okay, so if we take a look, we see that the word below zero tells us that it's not at zero, but it's below. So we know that it's going to be a negative 12. Okay, so in your integer box, make sure that you have a negative 12. Make sure in your words you have that the word below is underlined because it indicates that it's a negative. It says number 3. The hiker ascended to a height of 110 feet above sea level. Okay, so take a look at this. Underline any word or words that indicate positive or negative. If we're looking at this problem, we can see that the word ascended, okay, tells us he's going up, but also the word above sea level, okay? Both of those words indicate that he is going higher and higher and higher. So we know that this integer is going to be a positive number. And in your box there, we can write that it's going to be a positive 110 feet. Okay. Last one, number 4, it says, Maria wrote a check for $50 to pay for her new tennis shoes. Okay. I want you to look in those words and figure out which one represents whether it's going to be a positive or a negative. All right, so as we look into it, we see the word pay, okay? That she's having to pay for these. That's $50 that she doesn't have anymore. So we know that pay indicates we're going to have a negative integer. And our negative integer is going to be a negative $50. If she pays $50, she doesn't have that money anymore. All right, so what do I do after I finish my notes? First thing that you need to do is you need to put them in your binder. Okay, and the second thing you need to do is you're going to go back to Google Classroom and click on the Quizlet link to practice our vocabulary. And in your vocabulary, you're going to have words that indicate positive or negative, and I want you to quiz yourself with those flashcards repeated amounts of time. You're also going to have words that have real-world situations on there, and you have to quiz yourself about which integer is represented in that real-world situation. Okay, so go back to Google Classroom and click on the Quizlet link and remain silent while everybody else finishes their test.